This cheap plastic piston in the loader joystick linkage broke. John Deere has a replacement that's all metal, but they want almost $100 for it. I'm going to see if I can come up with something that will work just as well, but will cost less than half of that. Our loader joystick is completely loose going backwards, trying to lift it up. Now, I had this happen last year. I took it apart, found this was broken. This is where it connects to that joystick handle. There's a ball that goes in here. This was completely broken off. So the new part's all metal. So I'm like, all right, that sounds good. I'll just go ahead and get 2 of them, replace both of them, because if this one broke, the other one's probably gonna break too. So I go to order the parts, and they want over $100 for this thing. So to do 2 of them, it was gonna be $200. I'm like, I really don't want to spend $200 on this. Of course, now here in the middle of April, when we're in the middle of, got everything going on and need the tractor, using it multiple times a day, it seems like, then I'm guessing that's what happened, is the other one broke. So let's take this apart and see what the deal is, see if we can figure out what's going on. So this housing is 2 pieces of plastic, and it's got these 4 screws that hold it together. The problem is there's a bottom screw, the same down here, that you can't get to because the fender's in the way. I feel like I remember last year taking this whole plastic housing off and then pulling the bolts out of this tube and pulling this whole tube out. But I also feel like I remember figuring out partway through that there was a lot easier way to do it. Of course, I didn't take any video of that, and no, I don't remember what that is. I can get to 3 of these screws with the long screwdriver. What I'm gonna try is I've just got a regular Phillips bit here, short bit, and they're 1/4 inch hex. You can just use a 1/4 inch wrench. I'm gonna see if I can get behind there. I'm just doing it by feel. Can't see anything. Beginning to wonder if it would have been easier to just take the whole thing apart like I did last time. I'm not sure if this is the trick or not either, but I think I can pull this boot out of here. Now, yeah. Okay. And we can see we're dealing with the same sort of situation. This one here, that's the one I replaced. And then this here is the broken one. So we've got the same deal. I think I just push down and kind of twist. Or maybe pull it towards me or something. There we go. So that pulled loose and rotated out of that socket. And then we're just in that spot back there, which I think we can just kind of wiggle out. And we're out. I'm just gonna try and pull these 3 bolts off this fender because I can get to all of them pretty easy and see if that'll give me enough flex to get in there. As well, just weld it on there. So apparently that's the trick. You just take those 3 bolts off. There we go. I didn't do this last time, I know that much. All right, so now I can get that out of there. As for this side, we have to fight with this. And what I remember doing last time is having to kind of loop it like this, and then we can go up. Okay, there we go. So then it's just a matter of getting these bolts all the way out of there. And then we're free, and we just have to disconnect these 2 cables right here. There we go. Should be it. Just take it off. And there's our assembly that we need to repair. There's our broken parts. So then to remove these, there's just these spiral type snap rings in there. So I think we just got to push down on it against the spring, and then we can find the end. There it is. And just work them off with a pick. There's another ring right in here. There we go. And it's a spiral retaining ring, I guess is what they call these. It's kind of like a snap ring, but it's not, doesn't snap. It's more like a screw-in situation. So here's the plastic piece that broke. I don't have one of the new all metal pieces, but it's essentially the same thing, except it's a solid smooth shaft, and this collar up here that holds the bushing at the top that retains the spring. Rather than doing that, it uses another groove with another one of those spiral snap rings to hold it in place. They also make a part, here's the part number, which I believe is for a new redesigned version of the same joystick assembly. It has this groove at the top, but it doesn't have those snap ring grooves. It's all smooth through here. From what I can tell, it's functionally identical otherwise. And this part is $40. When this happened last year, I decided to get that much cheaper part and try to make it work. I'm not a machinist, and I don't have any of the right tools to do this, and at the time I didn't even know where any of my tools were because we had just moved. I'm pretty sure I cut this groove with a jigsaw. That's why it's so rough and ugly like this. This open groove here, I filled with these cut washers and then made a washer that would slide up, and that provides the top retainer for the spring and bushing. It's pretty crude, but it does work. But because it's so crude, there is a good bit of play in it. So I'm going to start by seeing if I can clean up this lower snap ring groove and make it a little bit more precise so that it'll sit right where it's supposed to be. And then get rid of this washer and all this stuff and cut a groove at the top to take another snap ring and make it work how the original part is designed. Just a disclaimer, if you're a machinist, this is probably going to make you cringe. The right way to do this would be to chuck this part up in a lathe and cut that groove with the lathe. But I don't have a lathe. So a hack way to do this when you don't have a lathe is to use a drill press and a hacksaw. You chuck your part up in the drill press, use that to spin the part, and then cut the groove with the hacksaw. That can work pretty well. The hacksaw blade is about the right thickness for snap ring groove. The problem is this is a 1/2" drill press. This part is, I believe, 15/16 is the outside diameter. So I can't just chuck it up in the drill press. It is threaded on the end here, and if this thread were 1/2" or smaller, I could just thread a bolt in there that I cut the head off and then chuck that bolt up in the drill press. But this is an M14 thread, 14 millimeters, which is larger than 1/2", so that option won't work either. I do have a tap that is the right thread size, can thread that right in there, and the tap shank is obviously a lot smaller, and I can fit that up in the drill press. So while it's not ideal, I think that's our best option. Now the only thing I need is a nut to hold this part on the tap so that it doesn't just spin on the tap. So this setup here is a relatively uncommon thread size. This is an M14 by 1.5 thread. I had a hard time tracking one down. I did finally find some to order. I ordered them, but they've been bouncing around with UPS for 2 or 3 days since they've been supposed to be delivered, and now they're pretty much lost. So I need to keep moving on this. I'm not going to wait for those. So I'm going to try and make my own. This is not something that needs to be super high tension. This is really just to hold this in place on the tap. So I've just got a 1/2" nut here, which is smaller than the M14. I'm going to drill this out and then try and tap it. I've got this little drill press vise, so I'm going to try and use this. Drill is spinning faster than I would like it to, but that's as slow as this drill press will go. There we go. We've got our nut drilled out cleanly. So we'll put it back in here, and we'll get it tapped out to that M14 thread that we need. There we go. Starting to cut now. When you hit a hard spot, just back off a little ways. It just kind of clears that thread out. Those shavings have to work their way out of those threads. Feels like we're through now. Looks like we're through. I'm gonna start by taking a couple of measurements. Get the overall length of the part. Just under 4¼ inches. 4 inches, 225 thousandths. I'm gonna go ahead and measure the new one too, just to confirm that they're both the same so I don't have to redo measurements. It looks like they are. If I stand them on the table, the holes for the sockets look to line up identically to me. So that means we've got the same overall length. So we can use the bottom of this part to the snap ring groove and to this collar as a reference point. I'm going to take and measure our groove here on the bottom. This is from the bottom end of the part to the top of this snap ring groove. 415 thousandths. 4.215 minus 0.415, and that's 3.8 inches. So that means we want, from the bottom up, because we're going to be chucking this in upside down, we want bottom of this groove to be 3.8 inches from the top here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put back in our tap. We've got the nut on here now. We'll go ahead and get it chucked up in the drill press to keep it locked in there. So I'm going to take this little C-clamp and try and clamp to the bottom of this table here. And then I can still pivot the blade, but it's clamped down pretty well. The most accurate way for me to measure this is going to be add the thickness of the blade, about 25 thousandths. So we're going to go 3.825. I'm going to set the table so that when I swing this blade, it's right on that 3.825. That looks like that's going to be close enough right there. All right, let's give it a go. And that looks perfect. The internal diameter of the groove should be a little bit smaller than the actual internal diameter of the ring. The ring can spin when it's in there. And we'll see, can we fit all the way through there? Okay, yeah, we are deep enough. So now we need to cut the groove on the top. 2 inches and 700 thousandths. Just barely started cutting that, but I want to measure to make sure we're in a good place. And that looks good to me. Oh, that looks perfect. We said we're going for 850 thousandths. And we're there. So that upper groove looks really nice. The lower one is obviously rough from where I cut it before, but it's now straight. So now we'll take the new one and get that one chucked up in here and repeat the process. Just double check. Looking perfect. Height is right on. We'll check our clearance. Need to go further. It looks perfect. One more to go. Looks like maybe we slid, or maybe I'm off. Let's see. Yeah, it does look like we slid a little bit. This is why I double check. I don't know why I was so off, but measure twice, make cut a little bit, measure a third time. That's a lot better. And there's our second completed part. We do have this little score where we missed, but it's just a surface mark. So now we've got our parts machined, we need to get snap rings on these two grooves. Our old part, which had this collar on the top, only uses one snap ring on the bottom. The new parts require two. And that would be the case whether we bought the correct part from John Deere for $95 or we did this way. I spent probably way too much time trying to adapt a regular snap ring to work. I ground it down. I still kept running into clearance issues. $6 a piece plus tax is what John Deere wants for these. I wasn't able to find this style anywhere else other than through John Deere. I think they call these a spiral lock snap ring. I don't know if anybody knows where you can get like a universal kit of these. It's easier to get the top one on. The bottom one you have to put in when the whole thing's assembled. So you saw me take the joystick out of the assembly installed on the tractor like this. It was a lot of prying and stretching and wiggling to get it out. And when I put this back together last time, I did the same thing. I installed this like this and then put the joystick back in place. After a little bit of trial and error, I actually think it's going to be easier to install this onto this assembly with the pistons all together as one unit. So I'm going to go ahead and take the pistons and install them on the joystick like this. Put these in the housing together. Then we should be able to just drop right down in there. It's a little bit of wiggling and lining things up. Yeah, and then just drop straight down in there. Push it down in place. And we're down in there. So now we just got to install these snap rings, which I've actually got a handle to hold it up, which works out pretty nice. All right, we go back down on our assembly here, bolt it back up. Then we got to connect the cables down the bottom here. Just push down on my handle and then I can get the wrench right in here. This does have this handle that slides in the side here. And this is to lock and unlock the loader joystick. I do believe that is the only difference with these parts, is the configuration for this is different. So I'd have to get a different part for this. I'm just gonna leave it off because I don't use this at all. And go back down with our boot. And then go back on with our housing here, which is gonna be a little bit easier because we don't have that lever in the way. Pull our fender back and sneak this one in here. There it goes, it is getting started. It works. So was it worth it? I would say so. I think it was $54 price difference between the two parts. It's over $100 price difference, and it took me probably less than an hour to do all of that, cutting this groove, including making that nut and getting all the tools out, filming it all. So definitely took less than an hour to actually do the task, and I don't make $100 an hour, so I'll take that. Well, I gotta get back to work. The loader chores have been starting to stack up. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you back here on our next one.